Drew, can I pick your brains on stress and mental health in the construction industry in specific? Could you give the audience some tips, some ideas on how to maintain a well-balanced life?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, talking about stress.
Yes.
So one of the things that people fundamentally don't understand about stress is it's not solely a psychological phenomenon.
Right.
Right? Like if I was to say to you, are you stressed?
Yeah.
Like right now, and you were thinking of it from like, do I feel stressed? What would you say?
I think about everything that's going on in my life right now, all the shit that I have to do after, and I go, yeah, maybe I'm stressed.
But yes, but you're the wrong person to ask because you understand it now. But if I was to originally, way back when I first started with you and you were working like 100 hours, barely seeing your kids, your wife was being amazing, but if I was to say you were stressed, I'm pretty sure you said no, I'm all right.
I would have 100% told you I'm all right. Because
I'm good because you weren't feeling anxious or whatever. I
didn't know how to categorize it.
That's right.
I didn't. I mean, for me, it was I have a list of things to do. If I don't do those things, I don't make money, right? So it was just straight and simple.
Yeah, and you were in like
go.
You were in your MO of just work. But when I would ask the question of, are you stressed? You'd have to go, do I feel stressed? No, I'm all right now. But that's not what stress is. So
you're right. What is
the
stress?
easiest way to say it is when you build a building, right, or some structure.
You're talking my language?
That's right. How many years is a building meant to be able to stand up for?
200 years.
200 years, right?
200 years.
Yeah. So how do they test that structure to make sure it will stay up for that long?
Structural stability, trusses, the loading of the building, and stress.
Come back to that. The loading of the building.
Loading of the building, yeah.
So the building or the structure, the bridge, whatever it is designed to withstand a certain load of stress, or stressors is the way to say it.
Yep.
That's the design of buildings. So what a lot of people don't know is back in the 1940s, a guy called Hans Selye, coined the term stress and borrowed it loosely from engineering.
Interesting.
Because what he saw was sort of what I said, same with this human organism. Think of this like a building or a structure. There's only so much load, and there is an actual technical term called allostatic load, or I call it biological load. There's only so much load on this biological organism until it starts to, creak and groan and struggle, and just like a cyclone comes along, and that building that was designed for 200 years wasn't designed for a grade 5 or whatever hurricane or cyclone.
Yeah.
So it might start cracking and having all sorts of issues.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
If you put a human body under a chronic load of multiple stressors, psychological, environmental, chemical, all the different physical type stressors, everything coming on, and it's not just a short term, this is like over time.
Yeah.
If you don't remove some of those stressors, the human organism starts to break down.
Right? And you start getting chronic illness.
You start getting chronic illness, but the thing that people get stuck with is they feel like their mind is, they're losing their mind. They can't think straight. They've got brain fog. They're barking at their husband or wife or their kids, or they're losing their temper, or they're sort of having all these emotional, psychological things. And then they'll start to be like, oh, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. And I always get people back to, hold on a minute. If you get a broken ankle, right, and you get put in a cast and you come out of that, you're not like, oh, yeah, broken ankle. You're like, do you want to go for a run, Andy? You're like, no, I can't, man. I can walk.
Yep.
Okay, sweet. Well, let's walk. And then at some point you might try and run.
Jog.
And you're like, oh, no, not ready yet, because it's just an injury to your ankle.
Yeah.
You'd ice it, you do all sorts.
But it's tangible. You can feel it.
But when people have been
pain.
under chronic loads of stress, which is what I see in the construction industry so much, massive hours, personal stuff at home, young kids,
tight deadlines,
all of
the
it,
world
right?
is
And
fucking
it all
ending.
consumes, and they start buckling. They start getting into that kind of, I call it that pre-burnout, and they don't know what's going on with them because they're like, I should be fine. I should be able to handle this. And it's like, yeah, well, should the building that's going through a grade 5 hurricane be fine if it wasn't designed for that? No. So how would you expect that you're fine if you add up all of this load on your system over the last 5, 10, 20 years, there's no mysteries to it, right? And so when people start to, in my view, understand the fundamentals of what stress is, right? And I talk about stress rather than say mental health or well-being. I'll get to that. But when you can start to understand the ebbs and flows of your own load of stress, then you can start to manage it a whole lot better. And you can start to realize some of the symptoms of being under chronically elevated levels of stress so you don't get yourself to that point of burnout.
Yeah.
But it has to start with a recognition of stress is a physiological thing. It's just simply something that stimulates your, brain, body, nervous system to fire off some, I won't get technical, cortisol, adrenaline, all those sort of stress hormones. That's telling your brain there's some sort of threat.
Mm-hmm.
There's some sort of threat. I've got to do a bit of a fight or flight or freeze in a very micro level or a macro level. But the more and more I understand that it's not personal and it's just literally like you are a building that's designed, and everyone's different, to withstand a certain number of stressors, then you can start to actually mitigate and remove and deal with all the varying stressors.
Or put mitigation measures so they don't bother you so much.
Like you, right?
Yeah,
like
it's 100%
you
like
now spend time with your kids a whole lot more.
Oh, mate, a whole lot
which
more.
is so nurturing for your mental health, right?
That's amazing.
You exercise a lot. You already were. You spend time with your wife. Remember, we got you to go to the movies in the middle of the day with your wife. Remember, you argued with me. It's like, there's no way I can go. I'm too busy. I was like, bro.
Can I tell them the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you literally called me up and said, what are you doing tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, not much on, but I've got this and this. Like, is it important? I'm like, yeah, it's important. Like, okay, you need to take Para to the movies, blah, 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 blah. Because I think I told you about that we were thinking of going to the movies or something. And literally
you told me that you promised that you were going to book it like all these times. And bless her heart, but I could tell, because I know Para well, I could tell it was running thin on her patience of like,
I will get to it.
Bullshit promises.
And mate, you literally made me open the events website.
I remember. We were on Teams, actually.
Yeah. And you're like, open it now. Now. You're going to book it now.
You were like, I'm like, what do you mean are we doing it now?
I'm like,
yes, mofo.
I'm
now.
like, fuck, I'll get it done, bro. Just leave me alone. You're like, no, get it done now. Oh, it's such an amazing experience. We actually went to the movies midday, and because both the kids were in daycare.
And that was the thing. The kids were in daycare. I was like, dude, this is, you can do some of your work later or tomorrow. Like,
it doesn't matter. Yeah. And midday, we went and enjoyed a beautiful movie.
And you sent me a photo. It was beautiful, right?
That's cool.
And it's not like you should be doing that every day, every week. I'm not saying that. But the point being, if you want to take care of your mental well-being, this is your question, and your wellness and your anxiety and all those things, it starts with fundamentally understanding what stress is. If you go onto my website, there's a little shout out, but a resource, drewknowles.com. I wrote 30 articles in M2 magazine back in like 10, 12 years ago. They're all still relevant, in fact, more relevant, right?
Yeah.
All around stress and allostatic load and everything, and they're just very short, very easy articles to read. But if you don't understand what stress is physiologically, you'll constantly get yourself into these frazzled states, and your health will decline, and you'll be, having mental health breakdowns or feeling depressed. But all those symptoms, the chronic illnesses, the heart disease, you name it, all these current modern day like chronic illnesses, mentally and physically,
are caused by stress.
They all come back to the fundamental. You can't pump your body constantly full of adrenaline and cortisol and all those things, and not have it erode the whole system.
Hey, I'm living proof, right? Yep.
That's right,
100%. Like, it's so true.
Probably, I mean, I don't mind working hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to work 60 hours a week in your business, and that's great for you, fantastic. As long as you're
managing the
balancing
stressors.
it out and managing the stressor and taking a bit of time for family. Like, it's not, don't buy into this utopic thing of like work-life balance. And it's like, it's whatever suits you, your partner, your kid,
Absolutely.
all of your aims. But it's managing, all those things, getting team members. Remember, you just were like, I'm not going to hire anyone. I had a bad experience.
Absolutely, man.
You got a team now.
I was so scared of hiring somebody. Like, that was like, it was weighing down on me so much. I'm like, if it is to be, it is up to me.
Yeah.
Right?
And then you'll
That's
work yourself to the
my
grave. Remember, you were
yeah.
like, I want to retire in a few years. I was like, why do you need to retire that young? How about you're like mostly retired and we just extend it out a bit, lower the expectation.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
And
I wasn't very happy
you
about
can
that
be retired when
but-
you're 45 instead of 40. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't very happy about that conversation.
Of course you weren't.
But I accepted it because that was more realistic.
And
And it took away a stressor.
It is, and it's allowing you to, in my observation, enjoy the process of your life.
Yeah.
A whole lot more than the ambitious end game that you had, which, by the way, you've got it well figured out. I always, tell you, you've got it way more sorted than I have, when I was your age.
Long way to go.
I'm 10 years older than you, God. But, so that's, people talk about mental health. It's important, but they try and then deal with the symptom of mental health. Just go meditate, just exercise more. They're all important. But I think more and more we've got to understand that we come from a fundamental sort of cave person biological organism that has not evolved much for 50,000 plus years. We are still battling saber-toothed tigers, but the saber-toothed tigers are in our minds and in the interactions we have with people, and an email that you don't like that does it, or as some of my favorite comedians would say, we're scared of words these days. Words are stressors, right? And this woke generation that we're in, that's become the saber-toothed tiger. Is
this the right pronoun?
You're making me feel so offended. And look, I'm not okay with bullying and bad behavior and, any of that misogyny and just, we're in an industry where everyone's working hard to be better, but it's whatever stressors stress your system out. It doesn't matter. You got to identify them and learn about them and understand them and get good help. Like you got help me to interview your offshore people and one of your team members here because it's not your expertise read the intricacies of the behavior. And I didn't interview them on their technical things. Remember, I talked about their family and their kids, and we found the right fit.
100%.
Stanley at the Attention Seeker many years ago. You won't mind me saying this, in his first number of hires until he got the rhythm of it, he would use me to do this whole figuring out the right personality, the right behavior, what's the role, what's the job, and then we'd craft this kind of almost character of the person we want, and then I'd set him up to go into interviews to ask all these different questions to prime the person to get into kind of their default brain so they would evidence their style of behavior.
Yeah.
And his first probably 5 or 10 hires were
oh, they're awesome, yeah.
Magic.
Mate, I've been in the Attention Seeker since the beginning. So
you and I have. We're like the OGs. Yeah,
we're the OGs.
Yo, fist bump to that, dude. That's right. But that's the sort of thing of sounds so cliche. Don't do it alone. Get help. If you don't know what's going on with you and you're feeling a bit frazzled and burnt out, talk about it.
Yeah.
A number of times I've been with some of my construction clients and they're talking about some of their PMs and different team, and then I'll just go, hold on a minute, tell me what else is going on
with you.
I'll ask them tell me a bit more about this project manager. Oh, well, this, that, and the other. Oh, have they got young kids? Oh yeah, they've just got a 2-year-old and they've just had another baby. Okay, and they'll keep going on. I'm like, do you have any mystery as to why this person's just basically turned into a complete zombie? And then once they see that, they go, oh. But it's you just figure out the load on the building called the human being, and you'll understand how to just monitor and, mitigate all of that. And you can have healthy and well team members if you're willing to just actually get more interested in what sort of things put a press or a load on their system and add to their stress.
Yeah.
Because everyone's different.
100%, everybody.
Mine's all people sort of, if people are upset with me or they, or I think they're upset with me, that's a stressor for me, and I'm good at mitigating it. But for some people, they don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They don't care what people think of them. They don't, so it's different for everybody.
I think you do, mate. You care very deeply.
I do, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but
you do.
I know other people who are
other people don't.
People could say what they want. I'll just block them and get rid of them. That happens to me. I'm like, oh, what do I need to do?
You get
what can I say? And
No, that's really cool, mate. That's really cool. Understanding your stresses, that's the key message that we're taking out of this.
And I'd rather the conversation was not about mental health or anxiety or, like I said, all these symptoms.
Yeah.
I would wish the conversation would be about
the root cause, which being
what level of stress is on these organisms and on these teams, and how do we actually make sure we're managing that load? Because then you won't have these chronically stressed out people who are not functioning well.
And then we won't have to talk about mental health because your mental health will be fine because you've eliminated the root cause.
Correct.
Which being the stressor.
Which, coming all the way back to construction engineering,
The Lord of the
Where
building.
would you go if you have a problem in a construction? Would you go to like the symptom, or would you drill down to see what's the actual root cause of
Oh,
why
100% you go to the root cause.
I've seen you do the process.
Yeah.
Why is it any different for...
Yeah, as an engineer, it just makes sense.
But it baffles me, right? Like I'm even working with someone on a whole, like, sort of their people development staff, and one of the colleagues said, why don't you invent the whole thing in a construction mindset? So building people, just like building a building, and start with the whole way you build a building or build a thing. Take your people on a journey through your organization with the same level of accuracy that you would if you were trying to get to the end game of building a building.
Yeah, people are the only ones that can actually make a difference.
That's right. As in, if you're building people, just like you're building a building, you'll deal with all the stressors that building can handle. Why don't we, as we go through the journey of careers with our people in our companies, do the same sort of thing where we're monitoring and managing and making sure we're building our resilience in our people so they can withstand stressors?
And
sounds logical to me, but it's just like...
But the other people need to see it as well. It sounds logical to me because I worked here for 6 months.
Yeah.
The other people never make sense of it. It's really cool. But no, that was amazing, mate. That was
Thank you.
Amazing bits of information that you've left on there for everybody.
On my soapbox, sorry. I'm passionate about this stuff. It's like,
which is cool.
It's my thing.
And yeah, I wish you all the very best with all the amazing work you're doing in the construction industry.
Thanks for your
that was
advocacy.
amazing. Yeah.
Appreciate it.